That's not good.
Howdy folks, welcome to Rustic Garage. In this week's video, I'm rebuilding the steering knuckles of my Bronco. I started making this video about a month ago. It was supposed to be a quick video replacing the front brake calipers, but I discovered in the process my unit bearings were shot and need to be replaced. And that's what you saw in the intro. Here I'm removing the Ford to GM pattern wheel adapters. This axle is a Dana50 from a 2002 Super Duty F250. The later model Ford axles have the 8x170 pattern, and the wheels I have are 8x6.5. Now I'm removing the lockout hubs. This side came out much easier than the driver's side. I had to bash it off with a hammer. Take out snap ring. Save the washers, keep them together. That's the shims that keeps everything in line. Remove the brake line, wrap it with a rag to catch any fluid. Now I'm removing the tie rod so I can turn the knuckle. Using the jack, put a little upward pressure on it and hit it with a hammer will break it loose. There you go. Put the nut back on so you don't lose it. I broke these loose first with a breaker bar before I bust out the impact. Yeah, this rotor was seized to the face of the hub. Took a while to break it off. Dead blow hammer worked. Alright, now we're loosening the 4 studs that hold the unit bearing to the knuckle. Yeah, this took a while. It's starting to come out now. I already have replacement dust shields, so I just ripped that one off. Just cutting what's left of the ABS line. A little WD-40 to lubricate the seal so the axle comes out smooth. Gotta get that ring out. Yeah, it was taking too long. I put the nut back on to keep it from falling when it breaks loose. This usually works pretty well, just hitting the knuckle. For some reason, it just wouldn't let go. So turn the nut upside down so I can tap on it without destroying the nut, but leave the nut on there so you don't destroy the threads. Little WD-40 helps out. There you go. Only the lower ball joint has a snap ring. They both come with one, but you only use it for the lower one. I do have a ball joint press, but it's kind of junk and it just started to bend the frame of it, so I put it in the shop press. And it takes a little time to set up, but when you do it, it works. There you go, broke it loose. Oops. Alright, now I'm going to press out the upper ball joint. Make sure everything's lined up good and straight. You don't want to break anything or rip anything off. If you're going to use a socket somewhat smaller than the diameter of the ball joint. This one was slightly too close to the actual diameter and got stuck. What we got going on, all these parts here, what we took off, and this what we're putting back. The hub actually turned out to be not in terrible shape. I did kind of beat up a little bit trying to get it off, so I'm not going to use it for the truck, but I have an idea for this for later. Got a new one here. It's a little stiff right now, but got this from Detroit Axle. Came with new ball joints, the studs. I had ordered nuts, but I was able to find those on Amazon. The dust shield came in a 2-pack, got that off Amazon. And this is just a remanufactured caliper and bracket from AutoZone. The old worn hubs are nasty and corroded and it's all smashed up. So I went ahead and upgraded the new ones, the new worn premium ones. And this guy, talk about that when we get to it. I really need a sandblast cabinet. Here I'm just using a wire wheel on a drill. Works good, just takes a lot of time. All this really isn't necessary to get this thing put back together, but I don't like putting new parts on rusty metal. don't think I showed it here, but I actually use a bore brush for a 12 gauge to clean out all the smaller bolt holes. I just chuck it up in the drill and run it through there a few times. It's looking better. I'm going to be reusing the brake pads and rotors. They were in good shape, just need to be cleaned up. To install the brake pads, I got to remove the caliper from the bracket. Oh, my camera died halfway through that, but got the pads back in there with the new clips, little spring doohickeys. Everything's back together. I'll show you this before it gets dark. So hanging it up and having that acid on it wasn't working very well. It was leaving this weird residue and it wasn't eating the rust off. So got it here and it's soaking in vinegar and water. Most because I didn't have enough vinegar to fill the whole thing. I also didn't have the right size tub, so filled this with water to try to kind of push that up. It wasn't perfect, but it's doing something. It appears to be working. I'm gonna have to come back and scrub it afterwards, but it looks like it's doing something. Anyway, so yeah, so that's a bunch of water and a gallon of 30% vinegar. If you have the right size container to put this in, because this works really good with iron or cast stuff. You can use it for some rust removal. Just be careful with it. I recommend buying the 5% stuff from the grocery store for that, but this stuff works pretty good if you can cut with water. You know, just check it often. I'm probably gonna pull it out of here in about an hour and just hand scrub it, dry it off, and get ready for paint. So I cleaned up the inner C as well with the wire wheel on the drill. Went ahead and washed it off with some brake clean and a rag, and then sprayed on this rust converter from Eastwood. It converts the rust to a stable oxide that won't continue to rot and turns it black. It looks pretty nice. I'm gonna put a couple more coats on it, and then in the morning I might put some paint on it. But it looks pretty good. Alright, so it's the next morning. I went ahead and got that cleaned up from last night. Wrapped off any residue with some brake clean and a rag. And then finished off with some extra paint I had. Emptied the can. And let that dry for a few hours and we'll start putting it together. Alright, while that's drying, we got some other things we need to do. These are the studs that go on the back side of the hub here. And before we can get these in there, we need to fix these nuts. These are not the original nuts. These are not for this application. I had to order these because the regular ones are like $10 a piece. So you can see here, here's one of the ones we took off. And you see the ring, the base around it is much smaller than these. And these won't clear this ring around the axle shaft. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread 2 of these like that on one of these studs, and we're going to spin around the grinder, take that edge down until it's close to that. With our flanges ground down the sides, it's time to start putting our studs in the hub. The way to tighten these studs is to lock 2 nuts together and then turn them simultaneously. That'll allow you to turn the whole stud. And then you can just break the top one loose, just like that, and they both come off. With the studs installed, I need to go ahead and remove the ABS sensor. This part here is a Zerk fitting that allows you to grease the hubs and eliminate the ABS sensor altogether. Alright, our paint's all dry. We'll go ahead and start pulling the tape out of our mating surfaces and the paper towels out of the bolt holes. And we'll get these ball joints pressed in. Right now, reinstalling the knuckle, the lower ball joint gets torqued to 150 foot-pounds. The upper ball joint is set at 69 foot-pounds. And then you turn the castle nut until the hole lines up. So this nipple here is for a vacuum line that actuates the automatic locking hubs of the original factory setup. But since we're using manual hubs, we don't need this anymore. And that's just an opening for water and dirt and shit to get in and ruin our seals. So we're gonna go ahead and pull it out of there. So that is a 1/8 NPT thread pitch, and we'll replace it with a 1/8 NPT plug. You can also use a grease fitting there, which I might do later, but for now we're just gonna use a plug. That's what I have. There we go. Next step is to go ahead and slide our axle shaft back in there. But I'm going to go ahead and wipe the inside surface of this with some grease, as well as the seal around the axle shaft itself, so that it slides in a lot easier. Greasing all the mating surfaces of the axle shaft and of the hub will make it easier to go together and to come apart later. When installing the nuts for the studs for the unit bearing, just run these down to touch. Don't over tighten them yet. We're going to come back later and torque them. With all our nuts in place, we can go back and torque them going corner to corner. We're going to go to 130 foot-pounds. At this point, everything's torqued to spec. We're going to go ahead and grease our hub fitting and our ball joints. Again, I'm going to put some grease on the hub, just on the inside, get all the splines and the face surfaces. Make sure I get the shims covered as well, keep them nice and lubricated. And put our snap ring back on. the splines lined up for our inner locking hub. Go ahead and put some more grease on it. Spread it out real good. You don't want to overpack this, but having a little bit in there is good. Put our lock ring in there. Put the O-ring on the cap. Line up the bolt holes. Just get them loosely set in. We're going to tighten these in evenly in a star pattern. And then wipe off the excess grease. Normally around this point would be good to go. You'd be able to throw the tire back on and torque her down and be ready to go. However, we still have to add our spacer. Because we need a spacer, we're actually going to have to cut these down. So you can see with the spacer, the old studs stick out about 3/4 of an inch. And they need to be cut back so that they sit back inside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw the nuts in just to sink it in and make sure that it's all even. And I'm going to mark just where it starts to come out with a paint pen. We'll take this back off and we'll start cutting those off. This tool helps deburr the ends of the studs where they were cut off, so that the lug nuts can go back on easier. forgot something. All right, she's on, she's torqued down. I'm gonna go ahead and let it off the jack stand and then reconfirm our torque and move on. So the only thing left to do on this is bleed the brakes, but it's getting late, so we're going to go ahead and clean up. I gotta work tomorrow, so we'll finish this up the next video. Go ahead and do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, like the video, and we'll see you next week. See ya.